everyone, it's Edo 4 and welcome you all to the very first episode of Edo Self-Talk. Of this being my first episode, even though technically this is like my 7th one, but it's a bit of a restart since now this is a series. And on that note, for this being my first episode, the sponsors that we have is, of course, myself, of my own autobiography called Who Am I For Real? Growing Up with Fast Ed, Part 1. And also, before we begin, is a bit of disclaimers I have to say is that everything I have said from this point will be based on opinions, and please do not take anything that I've said that seems serious too serious. And now for this first episode that we got, I have is called Content Changes, and also the name of abbreviation is EST, Edo Self-Talk. So now the history, we're going to get into the history of my channels about content changing since I have been on YouTube for 7 years, and I like to tell you at least the longest story of like my YouTube channel as long as I can, and even not only that, the best way I can. And also on that note, I really am going to do my best to at least not have this be too similar to the podcast, make this be a bit different. And also with the other part of the disclaimer is that it might get a bit unfiltered as well. But on that note, even if it does or doesn't, I'm just going to say this is a correct time to play this sound that goes. That seems to be the great time to play this. So I guess since it's about content changes, let's start off with before 7 years ago. Let's start off with April 1st of 2018, which is like April Fool's and Easter. So this is where my very first video of opening presents from Korea starts. And from that time, as I've said before, I didn't really know if I could really start YouTube ever again, especially because of what I have done previously. And even I have the link to 2 of those videos of the re-uploading adventures of the YTP Adventures Part 1. And here's also Part 2 as well. Those videos were completely different than what I usually do, like right now. Like I rarely showed my face, and once again, I would usually show my favorite cartoons of Ed, Edd n Eddy, South Park, and just mix it in with just a bunch of random stuff. This was considered a bit different in my zone, and even a few years before, as of a Vine video that I have, again, within the description, it was very different than what I made before about myself just being not only in public, but also the way I was really going to do my very first year with, of course, the first video of opening presents from Korea was it was going to be a bit of a vlog. Like, I was thinking I was going to start on a vlogging type style, which most of my videos kind of started off this way with my adventures with Tony and just a few other stuff that was just going around of when I was living in Florida for Full Sail, not sponsored, of Full Sail and CVI. Like, that's what most of those adventures were. And then a bit of a shift change when one of my great friends, Christian, the music maker, wanted me to do a video that was saving the internet. And also, I have a part two of that within not even just the playlist of my first year, but the second year and all the years that we got so far. So that is when, at that time, it turned a little bit into a commentary channel, just probably for a little bit, like not too much. And as far as like the first debut year was going, it was it was pretty rough. It was a pretty rough start because there was some dark phrases I was getting into in the whole 9 yards. But that is when the second year of Rebirth have changed, not even just the vlogging style, but also the whole premise of what I was doing. And that would be called the second year Rebirth, my very first Rebirth. And that is when wait uh hold up for a second. There's gonna be a few pauses here and there. So wait for a second. Hello, my friend. Sorry about that. I had a little bit of the mix up of the years that I was doing. So going back into the very first year of Rebirth, the unfortunate part is that two of these videos were actually going to be my last video because, not only I couldn't think of anything else at this point, but this again was like a very dark period of my life when I really didn't want to really be here on this earth anymore. And then the thing that definitely made the biggest amount of change is thanks to Ugu Bugu signing me up to 3300 in climbing. Big shouts to them. No sponsors, but big shout outs to them. That is what made the change. The In that same year, that is when me, Sheik, and Gusty Point, we did our 3 demo episodes of Learning Shonen podcast, and also what I've learned from Russia. And the Raptor reports are the biggest things that turned it around since I was getting a bit more engagement. And I was really thinking about some new ideas for the very first time, too. And also, on that note, within that same year, that's when I did the comedy special. So, not only that was when I guess I was leaning more into a commentary side of my channel, but also I wanted to do not even just a bit of podcast, but also do a little bit of, some comedy videos. Once again, that was hosted by CVI, and I was just recording my favorite parts while my friends were recording my part of being on stage. But even though that didn't really last as long as it could, that's where we now reach into another part of the content change of the second time of Rebirth, which is in 2020. And from that point, that was when, at that rate, I was in full sell for film and I was graduating. While at the same time, that is when the Seas was happening in 2020, aka the pandemic. And that, crazily enough, is when I was starting to not only come up with newer ideas, but just start of just other stuff to help out my channel, which one of the biggest things that happened around that time is when I thought of how Blank created Blank series. That is when I started to do that. On that same year is when I did a bit of a revamp of my Raptor reports of sort of like a Q&A that was sent to me by Lucky Sal and her friends, and I just did like a cool respond video of that, and just other things I was just trying out to see that could really stick for the channel. And also around that same time, that is when I did the Q&A for the very first time in that year, is the second year of Rebirth 2020. And I know, even though I haven't continued with the How Blank Created Blank, that was one of the first years that I started with that. and also once again the Q&A. And now we are going to move within the golden year. But one little thing before I get to is that is when one last particular Q&A is where for the winter and New Year special, I was sent questions, and one particularly of like what I was going to do within the next year of 2021, and also about my knowledge of Japanese music. And as far as that goes, I have been a fan of the Asian entertainment for quite some times, like around I guess a decade or two. And then when that specific question was sent to, unfortunately, a YouTube that's not even there anymore, which let's roll that clip. So now our next question comes from Versus. Now this person has uploaded a lot of old school K-pop and J-pop songs, and this person has asked me, since you like speed, you probably appreciate a lot of J-pop. How did you first heard about them? Well, Versus, I first heard about them the same time I heard about this group right here in the year 2009, which is called Mealine. Yeah, that particular channel is gone, unfortunately. But it made me think about what is the next type of thing I should do. And in that video, I often even said, like, well, often, that I said where I should probably make a Meaning Money report. Next year, in the year of 2021, if you guys would like me to, I can do a history about Meaning Money, since not only this year is the 20th anniversary when they first started, but also next year is the 20th anniversary when they released their first single, Jikae. And that's where the third golden year shows up of me doing Japanese report. Now, like I said, 2 years before is where I did my very first report of my very first my very first report of the Thailand duo Raptor. And happy early 31st anniversary to them. So that is when I got to that. But this is when this goes on a whole brand new level, even a newer level than the Russian report I was doing, because that within the golden year, that is when I did my Japanese report. And that in the very first video I start off with, besides the New Year's shoutouts that I did to start that year, was my favorite Japanese group of all time, Meaning. And then from that point, when I did Meaning, that I was a bit of fear at that time to release it, let alone the Raptor video, because I was thinking I was gonna get copyright strike, and that was pretty much even to explain how my two other channels, and even particularly this one, like I had like a different Gmail to start it, but at the same time, it went down that direction where it was copyright strike ban off to the shallow realm. But as you can see with this video, and everything that you see, it's still there, and including of course the very first Japanese report I did with Meaning. And that was also not the first time I put subtitles there, but I would say possibly the first time I started to speak Japanese with the help of some translation site that helped me get through. And within that same year, I also forgot to mention that I was starting full sail with another degree. So the year before, and that's when I graduated from film, and within that same year I graduated, with a few months later I started recording arts, and that is when I started to do that. And then with this, I was thinking at that time, in 2021 and so on and so forth, I was thinking I could continue this. And on that same year, I was also doing an SHE report, and and also within that same year, I also did started my podcast channel, the second channel, Edo Coco. That is really within the same year that I was starting this off of doing the Asian reports, and at the same time starting the podcast channel. That is the first time, and also doing a little reports and skits here and there. Even the opening present video for my birthday, that's when I started doing that for a little bit. And now at this point, we're going to start off with the 4th year milestone. And that, of course, is when I brought back How Blank Created Blank, but it was only for the last time. And on that same year, that is when I did the report of the late and great Coco Lee, while also doing 3 Korean reports of Flinko, Raha, and Rahung, and SES. And during that time, this is when I realized, I believe, somewhere close to the Moonchild report, or at least somewhere by the Heads 10K Rock report, I realized that it was about to come to an end. And the thing was is that it wasn't no specific comments here that was saying, hey, I got to change the content of the Asian reports. It was really myself. And the crazy thing about it, it wasn't even like I was getting tired of it. It was just something in my own soul and body was saying like, hey, I can't really, get to these anymore. And that was when like this was starting to happen. And this was also around the second to last time I was like not only living in Florida, but also finishing up my degree in Full Sail, which is going to bring us to the second to last year of 5th year of graduations and changes. So that is when I started off the year with, not even just the Vine video yet again, but also that's when I made my 3 last Japanese reports of Sweets, Sachida Par, and Whiteberry. And the thing that was interesting for Whiteberry is that this was going to be a really big collab, and in a way it really was. And I want to thank the people that could make it to that report, and also the people that not only couldn't make it but was able to enjoy my last Japanese report of Whiteberry. And that was at that rate where when I was releasing it, I released it within, well, I was trying from the first time of Mealine was supposed to be on International Women's Day. I didn't really get it the first time, but as the years continue, I still put Mealine there. And of course, as of even now, Whiteberry, they're now part of that too. And I made it like full circle type of deal. I also was setting up a fake press release for a meeting for this video. That's why that you could see everyone clapping from the beginning to the end of the video while asking questions around the same time too. And for that note, I want to thank everyone that could collaborate with me for that video from 2 years ago. Now, around that time while I was finishing up Full Sail of graduation from recording arts and pretty much moving, back here to Louisiana, I started to do a little bit of votes of like what were the best artists from Hokkaido, of old school artists, and even what was the best votes from Okinawa. And of course, from the playlist, you will see these videos there. Um, I was even doing a little bit of a tier list of anime. And also on that note, I actually unfortunately lost the original link of what I was doing the video of, but the link that I put in that video of the anime tier list, it's very similar. It's very similar to what I was doing, so that's what I had to do there. And at that time though, and oh wait, another important thing is that that is when I finished the very thing I am sponsoring for this episode, and even all the previous videos and episodes I've done, here, podcast and promo. That is when I finished my own audiobook of Who Am I For Real Growing Up with Edo Part 1. And even as you can see a little bit in the background, it's there a little bit. But yeah, that's when I finished that. But at the same time, even though these changes was happening, it was starting to really feel a bit slow. And that was when I was actually doing more episodes of the podcast than this main channel. And even from, the first and second year of the podcast, my channel and that channel, it was going hand in hand. It was just being released either around the same time, or, it was just being worked like, how do I describe this? Like, what it was just like it was going hand to hand. It was just doing stuff at the same time. That's what I'm trying to say there. And also around that time, that's for the podcast where I introduced this sound once again of the warning sound, and it meant that if like a topic is going to get too serious, or like there's going to be a lot of swearing and stuff like that, that's where I play this of like, trigger warning and something like that. So that's when I was going to do that. But like I said, around that time, that's when things were going a little bit slow. It was going a little bit slow, and not much content was really being released at that time. Despite of like what I was releasing before, it wasn't really coming in fast-paced motion. And that was pretty much the third year of Rebirth, and now we're going to move on to the last year of Rebirth, and it was pretty much the same thing. But the thing I was doing that was pretty new is that at this point I had a third new channel, which is the promo channel. And speaking of which, again, I know once again of my book, I made an audio version of my book. That is what pretty much I would say would change the game. And even on that note, that's when I was doing more tier lists. There weren't, again, with that year, it wasn't really going as fast as I wanted to, or more likely, like I kept posting like constantly. Like it reminded me more and less of like my first to second year Rebirth again, because at that time I wasn't really posting those videos a lot. I really wasn't. Like those were going like as slow as it was the year before. But on that note, I guess if it makes it any better, that's when I was even doing the podcast channel was going through the same thing. But also it was a bit of a collaboration with it, even though I've done a little bit of previous collaboration before. All the podcasts were for my last year of anniversary. It was April Fool's, where everything was mixed up. And as I said before, these things are going to these links of all that is going to be in the description of this episode / video. Now, I'm gonna kind of catch my breath a little bit before like I move on. Even though I believe these are all the years, I might have forgotten a little something, but let me kind of just pause a little right here real quick. Hold on. All right, everyone, I'm back once again, and I have to say I think that's about it. But there is a few things I still want to really share with you all before I end my very first episode slash the seventh of Self Talk is one of the biggest things I wanted to share. So speaking of like my last videos of like the podcast with Anthony, and also with the Q&A for Match Today, that's going to be shared, and with this video itself, since of what was there from the video I had before of the 1080 versus 4K. This video and episode, is going to be in 4K. And from the note I want to share from the episode of the Q&A I did with Anthony slash Word of Man. Here was a bit of a thing that he said that I would like not only to share with you all, but just a bit of a kind of like a response, you know? So please enjoy that part. Here we go.
One thing I do have to be honest though,
Okay.
I respect the hustle. Like I see you're just putting in the work, you're being consistent with your uploads, like
Hmm.
all of this, and like part of me, like before, I just didn't want to do another because I felt like I just had nothing to offer. But what you're
Right.
doing is you're just creating something to offer. Like every person that you interview, you've just been asking right questions, making content out of what like somebody else who has an excuse, like myself, would say like nothing, right? You're just like pulling it up, and I really respect that. I gotta say.
Thank you so much, man. And you know, I'm doing my best too to really try to not only like do more here, but also for the main channel as well. So, you know, to hear you say that and also for you getting back in the game, I'm proud of you, bro. And
I know, man, consistency for me, man, like I really got to hit on it. Like you've been so good with consistency and I really admire you for that.
thanks, man. And also, so really what Anthony's saying, he's not wrong. I just personally just didn't really feel like I was really being consistent. And I don't really know what it was. But the thing that I do know is that lots of things have like changed throughout, you know, even as I was explaining this the best way I can of the years of all this. Like I've changed a lot of content. I definitely thought one of the content was going to still be or what I was going to make was going to be the Asian reports, but it wasn't really there. It wasn't really there. And I know change it's a bit of a hard thing, but we all got to do it every now and then, you know. Especially I would say the best way to really make a change, even explain here for my 60th episode with Chris Lotus, I was saying that the best way to really make a change is to make the change while it's it's going on super slow. Like you can't really do it super fast where people are going to notice it. I feel it's best to do it at a slow pace. But not only that, but it's best to also do it when you're really feeling ready to do it, you know? And I know that's usually a hard thing when you have like either lots of people watching or anything similar. That's hard to do, but you know, at the start and the end of the day, you gotta really do what's best for you. Like if it's a type of content you want to really do, just go and do it, you know? Like it is best to not really follow the whole thing of algorithms and stuff like that because there's you know there's no telling of where it could go and even like the content you want to like if you're going to create it like based on that I don't really think you're going to like it. I mean unless that's the thing you want to do, you know, no anything there, but you know if it's something you don't want to do and you feel like you want to change something, never feel afraid to change it when you really feel ready to do it. If you really feel like this is what you want to do, you know, just go right ahead. And the one thing to always keep in mind for that, for anyone that is listening, is that whatever you do, you're not alone. There's always help around the way. And I might not be the person, but I know there's always going to be someone else around the corner. And even on the note, it's even to even put a link of deleted YouTuber deleted recent video of YouTuber gone because of copyright strikes. You know, life is really too short, and it's best to really just make what you really can of what you can make and not based not only on someone else but just the things that's popular because it's just something that's just going to phase out over time. Again, it's best to make what you can. Even for this year, I don't even know what to call this year, if this is going to be a rebirth or even for this episode alone, I don't know how many other episodes. Like I have a second one coming up that I'm thinking about right now. But as far as I know, I don't know how long this is going to really go. I don't know how long this is going to be. But all I know is that this is what I want to do. I don't even know how far this is going to really take me. I just really want to make this because I just want to spitball my ideas towards you. And that's what the self talk is all about. And, once again, before we move on, is with this alone is that I'll even like I am definitely open to like anybody that would like to collaborate with this whole idea of the self talk, and even I'm going to do my best to make holiday specials as well. I guess certain special holiday stuff, something like that. It's just again, it's just something to really like. This episode was really to just spitball what I was thinking while just doing this episode, and that's usually how these things are going to continue. That's really what this episode is going to be about. Is content changes from my own content, just for yourself of being what you could do, and just once again just spitballing. That's what this episode is here for. This is what, and especially if you like hearing my voice, that's I've just made a bonus for you guys. That's just what it's for. And just remember, whatever content you want to do, as long as it's not harming anybody physically and emotionally, feel free to make the content that you really want to make. Not because of someone told you to do it or because anything again with algorithms. No, just do it because it's what you feel in your heart. That's how I'm going to leave this. And now, before we do the shout outs, here's some collaborations with Zipskey and also Anthony slash Word of Man podcast. But it's Anthony. It's new Anthony now. And now for the old shout outs. Oh, speaking of which, now for the old shout outs we got is Simply Maddi Jay, Anthony, once again, Ponder Sprocket, Ghost Claw Production Radio, Tony Kwon, 3300 and Climbing, Chris the Music, Mealine Yamaguchi, and Dumbfounded for his podcast of Fun with Dumb. And these old school shout outs is also for the people I really want to thank that inspired me to make this self-talk episode that you're seeing right now. These old school shout-outs are for the people that I really want to thank and inspired me to come up with this idea, not even just for the time being, just in general, And also, of course, all the shout-outs, most and all shout outs I've done even previously up to them. I want to thank you all for getting me this far. Whether it's podcast promo, I want to thank you all too. And now for the official shout outs before we head up out of here is Cheetah Sweater, Def New Era, CRG Videos, Jude Kofe, Joey Balance and Brae, Activated, Self Trader, I do bring the Spider Love, Freestyles, Dear Rodrick, Tuesday, Kato Hideyuki, Justified by Jeury, Node Armstrong, Jikae, Gray Mads, Kazu Language, Advice from Lewis, Cerebus, El Danama, Who's Calling, and Piano Note. And as usual, you all, I really hope you all enjoyed this very first episode of Edo's Self Talk, first episode /7. I really hope you enjoyed this. And this is going to be the first episode, and also keep on the lookout for the next episode that is going to be coming on Friday. So, on that note, my friends, I hope you all have a very great day, and I'm gonna see you all later. Goodbye. I guess cue the theme song. It's time for Edo.